Sensory deprivation was all the rage back in the 70s. You just floated there. You couldn't see nothing, couldn't hear nothing, and floating itself removed the sensation of gravity. It allowed one to achieve a state of complete relaxation. These things were invented back in the 60s by a dude named John Lilly. Now this guy also discovered that people doing this would sometimes start to see and hear things, that weren't there. Hallucinations, right? Apparently the brain can sometimes start freaking out if it's not getting any input, so it just starts making stuff up. The human mind is fascinating. So, this Oscar-winning screenwriter by the name of Paddy Chayefsky, look at this guy. Looks like an old-timey wrestler. So he reads up on Dr. Lilly and gets the idea for some whacked-out sci-fi horror movie. The result of that is maybe one of the weirdest, most interesting, and the most annoying horror films of all time. Hey everybody, it's your boy Ralph, back once again on my original channel, making another video about another horror movie. Yeah, you can see I did some redecorating. Today we're talking about the legendary 1980 film called Altered States. Now, as I always do, I'm gonna start with my overall impression. Why do I do this? No idea. Gotta have structure though, right? I really like this movie quite a bit, even though I find it super annoying for reasons I'll get into later. And by the way, this review's gonna have them spoilers in it. Just fair warning. Now, I might come off as regular everyday Joe Skeleton or whatever, but I'm a science nerd at heart. And this is one nerdy-ass movie. Don't get me wrong, the science in this thing is an absolute joke. But you kinda go with it, you know what I mean? So it starts in 1967, when Dr. Jessup over here is bouncing around this little steampunk-looking tank. And he starts having all these strange visions. In these early scenes, we learn that Dr. Jessup is some kind of seeker of ultimate truth. So he tends to go on and on, chewing people's ears off with his, various babblings.
There's really very little literature on this kind of research. There's some good people in the field, Hart, Ornstein, Dykman, but most of it...
William Hurt is perfectly cast as Dr. Jessup. Just look at that face. And he's got the voice, too, for this insufferable character. He's really awful. Not William, he's great. His character kinda sucks, though. In fact, I'm gonna change his name to Dr. Wanker. So, Dr. Wanker meets another young science nerd, played by Blair Brown. She's so smitten by his good looks, she doesn't notice that every word out of his mouth is pretentious gibberish. And since it's the late 60s, they immediately start going at it.
God, Jesus, crucifixions.
Yeah, he's having crazy biblical visions when he's in flagrante. I guess he's from the tank. That's not really a thing either. But we go with it. Blair is certainly going with it. Dr. Wank is super hot. The movie cuts to 10 years later. And hey look, it's Boston! My town! And Blair and the doctor are married with a couple of kids. And not just married, but they're about to be divorced. Which is, I guess, the next logical step. Now, we'd like to think that Blair came to her senses and realized just what kind of weirdo Dr. Wanker is. But nope, the doctor himself didn't want to be tied down in his search for the ultimate truth. Oh, Blair. So he's still obsessed with his little visions from the tank. And he decides he wants to start taking heavy drugs to enhance the experience. Why, you ask? What's the point of all this? Well, I'll let Dr. Wanker explain.
Well, I think that true self, that original self, that first self is a real, mensurate, quantifiable thing, tangible and incarnate. Now I'm going to find her.
So he thinks that if he trips his little balls off, he'll somehow unlock billion-year-old secrets hidden within the ancient atomic matter that makes up our bodies. You know, that's also not really a thing, but again, we're going with it, right? Now, I'm a child of the 70s, so I did come across a few folks like this guy, you know, who mistook their love of taking heavy drugs as some kind of, you know, metaphysical journey to uncover ancient truths. You know, I met other dudes who took this stuff and were just like, yeah, I do it because it's fun. But Dr. Winker is not a fun guy. He convinces this other academic to carry him all the way down to Mexico, you know, to track down one of these tribes that does psychedelic rituals, so he could get his hands on some of that sweet indigenous psychedelic action. He does the ritual, and predictable things happen. The visuals and direction in this movie are really quite good. It's directed by this guy Ken Russell, who made a name for himself making nutty movies like this for a little while. He really knew how to frame weird stuff, you know, like in Tommy, Lair of the White Worm, and this other movie called Hua. You know, the visuals and hallucinations are appropriately trippy, is what I'm getting at. So now that Dr. Wanker's got his little miracle drug, he dives in with both feet into a snazzy new tank. And the tank and drug combination is just the ticket. He not only starts hallucinating an ancient past, his body starts transforming as a response. So we now have confirmation that, in the universe of the movie, Dr. Wanker's insufferable gibberish is indeed factual. Now I get it. Horror movies require a rather large suspension of disbelief. Like ghosts, and demon possessions, and ghoulies, and grabbed by the ghoulies. You know, I guess it's not the weirdest horror concept, but it's up there. People are starting to get worried about him. You know, his two science buddies. Actually, these guys are awesome. Played by, what's the guy's name? Bob Balaban? Love that dude. And, Charles Hayde, who was actually pretty legendary on this old cop show called, what was it? Something Bay City, something Blues, Hill Street Blues. Yeah, even his ex-wife, she comes back from a trip and she's worried about him. You know, even this young student he takes home with him one night. Yeah, it was the 80s, folks. But ain't nothing stopping Dr. Wanker. He goes back into that tank with his little drugs. And bro turns into an ancient little furry dude. Now, if I'm guessing, based on his appearance, I'd say he's Homo erectus. I swear I'm not doing a bit, that's what he looks like. This is also by far the coolest part of the movie. For one, it has these nifty practical effects. Just look at that. And then you get this guy playing the little caveman. Now I'm gonna call him out by name because he absolutely crushed it. His name is Miguel Gaudreau, and he was apparently one of the leads with the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. Best performance in the movie, which is actually saying something because there's quite a few nice performances in this one. So now this doctor is turning into little monsters and committing violent felonies in my home state. But ain't no one gonna talk him out of it. You know, and this is kind of the annoying part of the movie. Everything he does is, how shall I put it? Ill-advised. He's surrounded by people who care about him. And, you know, in case you forget, this dude actually has literal children, including Drew Barrymore in her first movie. Now, I don't know, but maybe as a dad, I was really kind of put off by this, you know? You know, make no mistake, William Hurt does a great job playing this intensely obsessive jack-off. So kudos to him, I guess. You know, movies don't always have to have a likable lead, right? But I don't know, man. Something about Dr. Jessup over here. Despite all the protestations of his peers and lovers, he goes back into the tank. And if you thought the little caveman was weird, we got this abomination. Now, I'm not even sure what the heck this is supposed to be, but Wikipedia calls it an amorphous mass of conscious primordial matter. So I'm gonna shorten it to CPM, I guess. So Blair jumps into this swirling pit of doom and hugs him back to normal. So all is fine. Love conquered all, I suppose. Wrong. Later that night, he turns back into the CPM in his apartment. And Blair comes over to try to hug him better again, and oops. Now Blair is some quivering mass of bullshit. In the end, he solves the problem the way men have been solving problems for generations. By punching the walls. Apparently, people thought this was so cool at the time that they copied it for the Take On Me video. And the film ends with Dr. Wanker telling Blair he loves her. Perhaps for the very first time, even though they've been together for like 11 years. And she eats it right up. Oh, Blair. Well, I guess love did conquer all in the end, you know? So Altered States is one wild picture. The science might be atrocious. The lead guy is a total knobhead. And the leading lady is a bit of a simp. A sympathetic simp. Maybe it's a double simp. But it works, you know? Acting, editing, direction, special effects, music. It comes together really well. So I'm gonna give this one a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, folks, that's it for this video. Now, I don't know if this is the start of something where I get on a big schedule, but I just miss the act of making these little movies. You know, and I guess I just missed being Ralph. Well, me, I suppose. Kinda hard to explain. I hope you guys are doing okay out there. Either way, take care, everybody. Bye.